So I want to move on to cash bail. I think it's a super important issue. And I feel like it might be one of those issues where we put the cart before the horse because of the fact that crime is classified in very strange ways in this state. So before we get to those details, I want to go to a video featuring an interview that you did on Democracy Now! This is where you were talking about what your goals were in regard to no cash bail. Let's take a look at that, we'll discuss.
Some of the specific policies to your question, Amy, include ending money bail. And that's a fight that I've been involved in the courts for going on 5 years now through litigation. I'm excited on day one to be able to put in place a policy that prohibits my staff from ever putting a price tag on freedom. And the problem with money bail, for folks who aren't familiar with it, is that when someone gets arrested under the money bail system, they can buy their way out immediately if they have resources. And that's without regard to their risk or to their community ties. So someone who's really dangerous but has access to wealth can be out of jail and back on the streets within a matter of hours, while another person charged with a less serious crime with weaker evidence against them and stronger ties to the community would languish behind bars simply because of their poverty.
I like the way you framed the argument there, and that is how I genuinely believe no cash bail was gonna work. It was going to ensure that, low-level offenders, nonviolent, stuff doesn't land someone behind bars, before they get to see a trial date. So I like the idea of no cash bail for nonviolent offenders. However, there is a problem with the way crime is classified in California, where you have what I would argue are violent crimes being classified as non-serious or non-violent crimes, things like arson, certain assaults. I mean, this list is insanely long. Taking a hostage, how is taking a hostage not considered a serious violent crime? And so you'll see repeat offenders who have, these issues getting released with no bail, and then this data, I want to be clear, does not come from when you were already in office. This is from the few years prior. But I think that it is telling because more than half of people, this is a graphic 6, guys, more than half of people charged with crimes and released from jail before their trials in San Francisco were accused of committing a new crime while free, and a similar share failed to appear in court in recent years, according to this new study. Again, this is from data before Boudin, want to be clear. According to this study done by the California Policy Lab based at UC Berkeley and UCLA, additionally 1 in 6 defendants allegedly went on to commit a new violent offense. And so are you at all concerned about that? And does that data make you rethink this approach?
Well, it's actually the opposite, Anna. It's the frustration that San Francisco voters had with that data, which, as you say, predates my administration and my bail reform policies. It's the frustration with seeing people who have access to money buy their way out of jail and continue to commit crimes that led to my election and that led me to implement a policy that is grounded in public safety, in victims' rights, and in equal protection under law. We have a system under my leadership where we ask the court to hold in custody people who we believe present a public safety risk or a flight risk. We don't care how wealthy or how poor they are. If you're a repeat offender, if you're committing violent crimes, if you're playing with weapons, we are going to ask the court to hold you in jail pending trial. If, on the other hand, you're someone who has no criminal history, strong family ties, or otherwise a basis for us to think that the evidence against you may be weak or that you're not a public safety risk, it shouldn't matter that you're poor. You shouldn't be stuck in jail simply because of your poverty. In other words, we have a system where, as in every county in California, the judges make the ultimate decision about who gets released or who gets held in custody pending trial. But when it comes to what we ask the court to do, it is based 100% in public safety and protecting victims and has nothing to do with wealth or wealth-based discrimination. We should not live in a society where people are presumed innocent and sitting in jail simply because of their poverty. Nor should we live in a society where people who we know have a history of repeat offenses are out of jail simply because they have access to enough money to buy their freedom. My policy makes it clear It's a risk-based system, not a wealth-based system.
And final question for you. Since you were sworn in, you have reduced San Francisco's jail population by 40%. That was one of your stated goals. You wanted to end mass incarceration. And a question that I've always had is there anything in place to help these individuals transition into society? Even if they're low-level drug offenders, I know that you prioritized elderly prisoners who might have medical conditions. You yourself had mentioned that we lack services in the state. We're severely under-resourced. So was there anything in place to ensure that these people transitioned back into society and had the support they needed to avoid or prevent having to commit another crime, maybe out of desperation in the future?
Absolutely, and just to be clear, Anna, that decline that you mentioned didn't happen overnight. It's not like we released a huge number of people at once. What happened was we saw a historic decline in reported crimes, a historic decline in arrests being brought to us by police during the pandemic. And as people completed their sentences or went off to state prison or were otherwise released, we saw a gradual, steady decline in the jail population. And here's how we did it, because you're exactly right. Reentry is critical. And it's an area that state prison and county jails all across the country don't pay nearly enough attention to. We have to make sure that when people are released from jail, they have somewhere to go, they have structures, supervision, supports in place to make sure they don't reoffend. We identified in the heart of the pandemic people who really never should have been in jail in the first place. I want to just tell you one story, one example of how we worked to prevent a COVID-19 outbreak in our county jail. We found a young woman who had never been convicted of a crime before, was serving a sentence for her first ever misdemeanor property crime conviction. She was drug addicted, she was pregnant, and the jail medical staff told us it was a high-risk pregnancy. Well, with a high-risk pregnancy and COVID-19, the last place you want to be is in a jail cell. And we worked with the court, we worked with our reentry partners, jail medical staff, to get this young woman's sentence commuted to time served and to get her transported directly to a prenatal residential facility. I am so proud to tell you that she stayed the course with the treatment. She gave birth to a healthy baby. She was sober. She graduated from the program. She has not been arrested again, and she continues to take care of her child. That's the kind of success story that reflects San Francisco values. It builds public safety. It's an appropriate prioritization of public health and of limited law enforcement resources.
Yeah, that is a fantastic story. I'm really happy to hear that. But is there a system in place? Are you working with certain organizations to make that transition smooth, especially when people were first getting released in 2020 when businesses were shuttered during lockdowns and there aren't really many opportunities out there?
Yeah, huge problem. The number of homeless shelter beds, the number of drug treatment beds, all the kinds of services that folks in this community of justice-involved individuals need were drastically reduced during the pandemic. We work every day with sentencing planners on my staff, with social workers at the public defender's office, with organizations like San Francisco's Pretrial Diversion Project or the Young Women's Freedom Center or adult probation or parole. We're working with every single agency and partner organization we can to find individual case-specific tailored reentry programs for people being released. We want people who get out of jail, whether it's with a criminal conviction, whether it's pending trial, whether it's on probation or parole, we want them to never come back into the system. And the systemic failures across this country that have led to recidivism rates above 2/3 are exactly why we need reforms. We cannot simply warehouse people, kick the can down the road and expect that after a month, a year, or a decade behind bars, their mental illness will magically disappear. We need meaningful treatment. We need meaningful community partnerships. We need criminal justice reform.
All right, Chesa Boudin, District Attorney for San Francisco. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time and allowing me to grill you. You handled it really well.
Well, I love what I do and I'm always happy to talk about it, and thank you, Anna.
Have a good one.
You too.